Hey, welcome back guys, and check this out. This is a computer I just picked up, and it was actually delivered today, a Sunday, which is strange. But it's a big old tower. It's a Cooler Master CM Storm tower. But as you see, it's got, the plexiglass side panel, acrylic side panel with the fan cutouts and stuff. It's a nice Cooler Master case designed to get airflow and stuff, kind of like their half cases. You can see there's a fan grill up here, and there's a handle right here, and some sticker residue there. And if we take a look at the back, you can see another fan I/O shield here with a whole lot of ports on it, which is kind of cool. Looks like it would be a decent motherboard in there. We do have a GPU installed, which we're going to open up and find out what that is, and a Wi-Fi card, and of course power supply. So I'm going to get the side panel off here so we can take a look at it and see exactly what we have here. Alright, so with the side panel off, it does look like we have a complete system here. I'm not sure what CPU is in here, but you can see we do have a nice Cooler Master tower here. It looks like 4 heat pipe dual fan tower. 2 sticks of DDR3, and we have a GTX 560 for a GPU, and there's the Wi-Fi card. Of course, a Cooler Master 700 watt power supply to go with the Cooler Master case and the thing. This was like obviously a whole Cooler Master theme. We do have there's an upper fan installed there, and we've got a rear fan and a front fan here. So this has 3 fans in the case. There's no drives installed other than there's an optical drive there. I'm gonna go through and make sure everything looks intact enough, and then we're gonna fire this up and see if this thing actually works. Alright, so I've got a monitor plugged in, power, and just a keyboard here. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to hit the power button on it as soon as I can find it. Alright, there we go. See if we get anything on the monitor. Yeah, there we go. It has come to life. Obviously, there's no operating system on here to load because there's no drives. But the good news is that it does actually work. So I think what I'm going to do at this point here, everything's, it's a little dusty in here, but it's really not too bad. I think what I'm going to do is I've got an SSD floating around here somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install Windows on here. We'll get some games installed, and we'll test this out in the configuration that it is here. I'm still not sure what CPU came in this, so we'll have to go through and check that as well. But I'm going to get Windows installed first, and we can check this out. This is a decent gigabyte board. I don't know exactly which board it is. I don't see the model number, but this is probably like somebody's top of the line, aside from the GPU, top of the line gaming PC at sometimes. So it'll be interesting to see what CPU is in here. Alright, Windows 10's installed, and I know it's not activated. Who really cares? But I waited till now to see what we're working with, and surprisingly, it's good news. We do have an AMD Phenom 2 X6 1100T, the fastest Phenom 2 6-core CPU that AMD made. The motherboard is a Gigabyte GA970A UD3, so we have a 970 chipset, and it came with 8 gigabytes of DDR3, currently running at 1600, and it's a G-Skill brand with an XMP of 1866, so that's really not too shabby. I haven't touched anything in the BIOS yet, and so far it doesn't appear that anything's been overclocked, so that's something that we can definitely take a look at later. And of course the GTX 560, which we already knew we had, with 1 gigabyte of GDDR5, and we should be able to push it without a CPU bottleneck and see what it can do. And the driver installed is 391.35, the latest available from NVIDIA for a Windows 10 64-bit. And being a Fermi GPU, we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on the temps and possibly clean and repaste it for testing. So now that we know what we're working with, this is 2010-2011 era hardware, let's go ahead and see what she can do. First off, we're going to run Firestrike, and just to get a baseline for later on if we decide to do some overclocking. The result was an overall score of 2781. We did have a graphics score of 3026 and a physics score of 7012. And while I was looking at the graphs, it showed something rather interesting. It's either a glitch or someone has done some tweaking to core boost in BIOS. The CPU looks like it's boosting at 4 GHz, which I believe that's higher than the default, but I'm going to look into that later. For now, we're going to leave the system set up as it is, and we're going to move on to some games. Alright, first up is Doom from 2016, running at 900p medium settings on OpenGL, and that will run at about 30 FPS and above for the most part, which may not be ideal, but it's still quite playable and it looks good too. And next up is Just Cause 3 from 2015, and it is running at 720p low, as was a pretty demanding game even at the time. And at those settings, 60 FPS is out of question, but 30 FPS is quite doable. Left 4 Dead 2 from 2009 runs excellent as expected, and at 1080p high and very high settings with 4x MSAA and 16x AF, it really dips under 100 FPS. Twenty 2013's Tomb Raider benchmark at 1080p with the high preset selected gave an average of 69 FPS, and in gameplay you can probably expect over 30 FPS consistently with the ultra preset selected. Alan Wake's American Nightmare from 2012 was also a decent experience. At 1080p with the medium preset, the FPS stayed pretty much in the mid-50s, making it very playable and looking good graphically too. GTA 5 from 2013 at 720p with the normal settings on the opening sequence outside gave us a smooth average FPS of around 90. 1080p also had a decent average of around 60, but it was a bit stuttery, I'm assuming due to hitting the 1 gig VRAM limit. But 720p was smooth as can be. I also didn't have time to go drive through the city, so it'll probably be a little less in the denser area, but most likely still good performance with a slightly lower average. Fallout New Vegas is about the same age as this hardware, pretty much easy to run as well, so we went right to 1080p ultra settings, and we were just under 60 FPS for the entirety of the gameplay. Fear 2 from 2009 ran very well at 1080p with the max settings, and aside from a few dips as this game has with any hardware, our average was right around 100 FPS. Alright, something a little more demanding. Metro Last Light Redux from 2013. And we ran it at 1080p high, and we still managed to stay above 30 FPS, so that was actually pretty impressive. In this game I didn't have much hope for with this GPU, but The Witcher 3 from 2016, 720p with low settings and textures set to high, we managed to maintain 30 FPS, so that was pretty surprising.
We need to watch ourselves in White Orchard, and we should leave as soon as we learn it.
And a new game I picked up, Call of Juarez Gunslinger. This game is from 2013, easy enough to run and a whole lot of fun, even on older hardware. 1080p with the highest settings, no problem to run above 80 FPS. And we can't forget the ultimate benchmark for older hardware, Crysis. This game from 2007 does seem to always elude that consistent FPS, and despite running on a high-end CPU and a mid-range GPU from 3 years later, we still fell short at 1080p with medium setting. With that said though, it was still decent performance considering that's Crysis. Alright guys, so here's the thing. I spent about $100 US on this PC, and while it may not play the latest AAA game, it plays a lot of games that many people still play. Some plays well, and some it's a struggle depending on how demanding and how new the game is. So in my opinion, a PC like this is definitely a bargain at that price. I think at some point, I want to pair the CPU with a more powerful GPU and see what it's still capable of. I mean, if it isn't obvious from some of my other videos, I definitely have a thing for the Phenom 2 platform. But in the meantime, you guys take care, and hopefully we can get another video out here soon, and I will see you on the next one.